Yeah, or where I am, it's getting close to that depressing slushy season. Uh, all right, so uh, looks like we're live, and it's not complaining about my connection, which is usually good news. So let me just get this set up here. So the way that I usually do it is I'll split it out um, using this pop out feature that they have in Discord, so that you and I are on the side. I would recommend to not watch the YouTube stream, otherwise, yeah, you're gonna get this Inception effect that is not necessarily the most pleasant environment to be streaming. But I will ping people, let them know that we're live, uh, and then we'll go. So cool. And also, really quick sound check just to make sure, because we are musicians and that's what we do. Make sure that's coming through. Okay, so I'm going to say testing. Looks like it's coming through. Could you just say something? Okay. Good thing that we did that. It looks like Discord it's for some reason doesn't want to pick up your sound. So let me, but that is absolutely fine. It's imminently fixable. Output device. Okay. Try one more time.
Hello, hello, hello.
Great. And you and I are perfectly balanced. It's hitting 0 dB on mine and yours at about the same level. So we could sing Bach quartets, except we're missing two people, and be aligned. So that's great. Okay. So looks like the stream is live. Great. So I will start by welcoming Brian to this stream. So I'll give a little bit of background about the stream and kind of what's up, and then we can just dive right into your history and what you're working on, and then we'll kind of go with the sort of crazy samples that you sent me, but they're loaded up, so we're gonna have fun. So I am in the process, just kicked off with a couple people, of building an online DAW, essentially, so something with ambition to take on Ableton, Pro Tools, you name it, with a novel approach to building that sort of thing. So that project kicked off in December, and immediately I looked through and said, whose packs have I downloaded in the past and whose stuff has I played around with, and just kind of sprayed and prayed and sent a bunch of mails to folks whose stuff that I like and that I've worked with before. And your Ableton stuff is definitely on the list. So it's gotten great response. I'm super glad that you responded as well. And it's probably, you can imagine that if I'm going down this journey of building this thing, part of the reason that I'm doing it is because I've enjoyed it playing in platforms like Ableton, but they kind of were lacking, and I felt like I had to make something else. But still, like all things in music and life in general, like when you make something new, it's active creative destruction. So you do it from a place of really liking, of course, the thing that you were doing before, and kind of growing out of that. So being on that journey and kind of having people coming in and listening to the way they think about samples and putting stuff together, and then trying to express that through this platform that we're building is kind of a fun time, and an intense time too, because it's live coding, so anything could happen, and of course you could fail too, but that's okay. So that's what these streams are. I've had Ben Burns on, Sound Directive, Mark Applebaum, Phil Freeman's going to be on tomorrow, so it's you're in great company here, and we're very glad to have you. And then another nice thing is that the people that are in our community that might not know your work will know it after the stream, and then they can go download it on Ableton or play through this DAW called WAGs, and kind of fork and copy and paste and go on. That said, the samples that you sent me is a very small subset of your work, so maybe they'll kind of load in some some other stuff as well, but we'll have a lot of fun with those samples. So that's where I'm building. That's the purpose of the stream. And now I'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Sure. Thanks, Mike. It's cool to be here. This is a new thing for me, so it's going to be fun to see how this all works. And that I'm Brian Funk. I'm a musician out of New York. I'm an Ableton certified trainer. I make Ableton sound packs, tutorials. I run the Music Production Podcast, which is just a show about anything related to making music. Very loose, open-ended conversations. What am I working on right now? I've worked on the podcast, working on live packs and sound packs, recording some music with my band. I got to mix one more song, and then we can start thinking about getting it mastered and artwork and stuff like that. So that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's kind of it. I think just making as much music as I can, having fun at it, and enjoying the community of people around music production, Ableton Live, and all of that kind of stuff. It's just such a rewarding thing to do for me.
Yeah, it's that community for me. I kind of got into it in sort of the not traditional way that I was working in a place in Paris called the IRCAM that uses Max a lot,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
Max wound up basically right when I started working there. Max for Live dropped, and then that integration just got tighter and tighter over the years, and then that got me kind of into the live community, and then through that I found a lot of stuff, including your packs pretty recently actually. But I'm curious to know, kind of from a community perspective. So mine's pretty particular because it's Max oriented, but which ones do you see yourself like aligning with or belonging to mostly?
Well, definitely Ableton Live related stuff is huge. I mean, that community has been great for a long time, and that's part of the reason I got into using Live. I was using other DAWs, and at the time I was learning, it was one of the first things I tried to learn on YouTube, really. And I kept finding Ableton Live stuff, and I was learning how to do things in Logic and Pro Tools via these Ableton Live tutorials. But then after a while, I was like, let me try this Ableton Live out and see what's up with it.
Yeah.
So that's a community I'm definitely involved in and love, and just kind of the music production, music making community in general. Doing the podcast has just been the best excuse to talk to lots of interesting people about making music.
Yeah.
And in that realm, like, it doesn't have to be like tied to any sort of DAW or genre or instrument or anything like that. It's just making music, and even sometimes people are loosely connected to that. It can be a really interesting conversation. It winds up getting very philosophical and about like creativity in general, and I love that. It's about art, really, and
Yeah.
creating.
Yeah. Ours will be more brass taxi than that. That's for sure. But we will touch on those. It invariably touches on kind of philosophy at a certain point.
Hmm.
But you're gonna see. I have it loaded up here with your samples that we're gonna start making sound pretty soon. But that's awesome. So kudos to you for doing that. And of course, I found out about you through. I think it was originally Gumroad, if I remember correct. To be honest, I forget. Are you
Yeah.
even on Gumroad? Maybe.
Oh yeah, I've been
Okay.
using Gumroad, I think, since 2013.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like much smaller back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I think it's just such a cool company. They've really got a great attitude about like helping creators, helping people that make stuff make a living off of it.
Yeah.
I had the CEO, Sahil, the creator of Gumroad, on the podcast, and he was awesome. I mean, just his thoughts on creativity were great. So I'm totally like all behind what they do. I really think it's awesome to have like companies like that are supplying a service that are actually committed to helping the people they're serving, instead of just, like the bottom line, making money, making investors happy and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it ruins the original vision.
Yeah. I mean, I found out about Gumroad later than that, but the first thing that shocked me about it in a positive way was that they were live streaming their board meetings on YouTube, and they're one of the few
Yeah,
companies I saw that. I mean, these things like that are like that just don't happen with other companies.
very
Or not.
transparent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very cool. Cool. So I actually don't know what pack these samples are from, if any, but they're loaded up here. So let me play through them, and if you can go on the document as well, yap.wags.fm/p/Brian, I'll send it to you, so that you have it in the Discord. Um, if you're not here already, I see that somebody's here. It could be you or just
I'm in one of these, but I don't know if I'm in the right one. I'm not
Okay,
sure. I'm
no,
not. I don't totally understand how this
how it's
works.
gonna work.
So
You'll,
it
you'll
looks like
see.
code to me.
Yeah, it is code. So do you see a slash Brian at the end of the URL? That's the important bit.
I think I did.
Great.
Let
All
me double
right.
check that.
So
Yes.
you're set. So actually, before we kind of bring in one of your sounds, let me edit it. So one thing you're gonna see here, and actually let me go to Firefox, just so I have a slightly better, because my line numbers stopped showing up, and that's kind of the bread and butter of this thing is live, not line numbers. That's how we're gonna navigate around. So I hope you see line numbers in yours.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, theoretically you should. For some reason, mine have decided to crap out in an unceremonious fashion. But I'm back. So if you scroll down to line 50, you're going to see me there. And I'm just going to put a hi-hat. And I'm going to make the loop 1 second long. So I'll click the play button on the top left. And then if you click the play button too, you should just hear a hi-hat looping once a second.
Yes.
Okay, so let me know if you got that. Great. Okay. So now I'm gonna do this like bass drum hi hat, this boom that you'll hear, and it'll subdivide it equally. So if you hear the bass drum hi hat sound now.
It looks like it's the wheel is turning here.
Oh, okay. It hasn't updated. Maybe if you want to reload it.
It did. The typing did.
Okay. It just means that
I'll reload it.
there's a slight glitch, but if you reload the page, and then try that again, you should
There
be
it
fine.
is.
Okay, great. Awesome. And do you hear the boom ching of the...
Yep.
Okay, great. So that's the bass drum. So right now I'm going to do triplet, bass drum, hi-hat. Let me know if you hear that come in. So it should be triplet.
Yep. There it is.
Okay, cool. And now I'm going to do another hi-hat, so you'll hear boom, boom, chit, like that. Okay, great. So like that's our sound check. So I'll delete it, and you won't hear anything. So, but it'll still be turning in the background. You just don't hear something. So the way that this tool works, it's a DAW. Up to 100 people can be in it at the same time, and it could start from synthesis or samples. So we're starting, or both. Here we're starting with samples, but you could also have like oscillators and generators and make all sorts of like 1980s and 70s sounding synths. But we're going to work with the samples that you gave. So there's a standard library of samples, and that's what I dipped into just now. But the next thing we're going to do is dip into some of these samples that you sent over. So the first one, I've indexed them below. I've given them names. So the first one I'm going to put is Op1. And let's take a listen to that and kind of hear what it sounds like. So I'm going to... so I hear it now. It's... So it sounds like it's C natural. Do you hear it as well in there?
Yeah, I hear it.
Okay, great. So that's kind of what I'll start with, and maybe I'll press the stop button on top. You can press it as well. But that's a kind of good sample to start with. Maybe you could let me know if there's a how can I put it, like a rhyme to the reason of the choices in the samples.
Not completely. So a lot of these are just sounds like that I've recorded. I just record sounds if I hear interesting sounds, whether it's with my phone or if it's with a little field recorder. I've got like this little it's right here. This is a Roland R07, or maybe it's 007. It's just this little tiny thing.
Yeah.
It's not much. It's smaller than a phone, a little bit thicker, but it's really easy to turn on, carry, and keep in your pocket. Nothing fancy, just I heard a cool sound and I wanted to record it because I love making the packs, and a lot of them come from samples.
Yeah.
This OP1 sound I put in here to have something that was tonal.
Yeah.
Just,
for sure.
Just to make sure we can do something with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if I recorded that to a micro cassette recorder or not. I know I gave you one that was, it doesn't sound like it. It sounds a little cleaner than that.
Yeah.
It might have been recorded to some kind of tape though.
Okay.
Not completely sure.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds. So we'll definitely be able to play around with it, and let me grab the duration on it really quick, just to. I mean, we'll we'll chop it up.
It's just a big long note.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's what does it say here? If I look at it, duration 43 seconds. Right. So we definitely we don't risk of running out of runway with this note. So here I'm going to. So you're not going to see this unless you're watching this. Or actually, no, I could do it here. It's absolutely fine. So I'm gonna start doing a little bit of the syntax that we have for this. So the first thing I'll do is kind of create this LFO type wah on the harmonic sound, and to do that, I'm going to use this operation called parse. So this is on line 52, and then this operation called change volume. So change volume. What I'll do here is I'm going to put in sample time. So sample time is, there's lots of notions of time in WAGs. There's kind of when a loop starts, there's when an individual sample starts, and there's clock time, like the time that's kind of from the beginning of when you play stuff. So I'm going to do a function of sample time, and there I'm going to use an LFO, and of course, like anybody listening in to this by now, it knows what an LFO. It's used LFOs in Ableton or Pro Tools, so low frequency oscillator. Phrase, I'm going to say that the frequency is going to be 2.0, so it'll be pretty fast at first, and pretty radical amplitude, and then I'm going to do plus 0.4. So, and let's do this to everything. So I'm going to do map, and map will apply it. It's like, it's unsubtle. It'll apply it to everything in there. Okay, so if I click play, which I just did, you should, and you can do the same thing. You'll hear this kind of LFO effect in there.
Kind of like a tremolo sort of thing. The
Yeah,
volume going up and down.
And it's at the frequency that's specified there, which is 2.0. And you can imagine that so it's going between 0 and 1. So I put the midpoint at 0.4. If I put the midpoint at 0.5, it'll be just a little bit louder, and that should show up at your end too. So let me make the tremolo a little bit faster and just hear kind of what sort of effect that has on the sound, if any. Do you hear that tremolo in there? Are you getting faster?
Yeah, change the rhythm a bit.
Yeah, change it definitely does. It has this. Yeah, it has this interesting effect on the rhythm. That's kind of. I think that something about it must be. I see what it is. Interesting. Okay, because it's actually looping back on itself, because I made it 10 seconds long, the loop, but your sound's 43 seconds long. So already we're hearing interaction effects, meaning that like it's which is not at all unpleasant. But let me put a gate on there right now. So what I'm going to do is say if sample time is, let's say, less than 2.0, then whatever this, or greater 2.0, then we're going to say 0.0, else the LFO. So this will cut it off pretty quickly. And now what I'll do is I'll make the loop 3 seconds long. And actually you can click the stop button in the top and then play again, and then it'll just recompile and replay. So there you go. So you hear that at 2 seconds it just cuts off completely, and then it'll come back in. So we can use this, and I'm going to boost it a little bit higher than it currently is, because it's the sound's not that loud at the end of the day. And another thing is I get the sense that we're picking up the beginning of the sound, and the beginning of the sound kind of has a fade in, so we're always hearing this type of growing thing in it. But we could start with some sort of offset in there, and then we won't hear that swell in the beginning, because like having the swell and having some type of amplitude modulation, you sort of there's too much stuff going on in there. So what I'm going to do,
kind of cancel each other out a little.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna actually, even before I do that, let me change the rate just to show how that's done. Change rate const 1.3. So you'll hear the sample kind of kicking up on your end. And we're going to create a whole army of these things eventually. I mean, we can make a synthesizer or a sequencer out of it, but this is just like us kind of getting the raw material. Very much like you would in Ableton or another DAW like that. So now what I'm going to do is fast forward in the sample using what's called a buffer offset directive. So we're going to kind of zoom forward into the buffer. I'll kind of type it in. So I have this editor that kind of checks to make sure the syntax is correct, which is my secret weapon. It's called VS Code. And a lot of people that use this use VS Code. So const 2.0. So I'm gonna fast forward to like later in the file, and yeah, do you hear that now? It's much more abrupt when it's starting.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
You
no
don't get
more
the fade in.
Yeah, exactly. There's not the fade anymore. We could reintroduce the fade synthetically, meaning we could put that in the change volume function, but it's no longer in there. Let me just kind of ramp it up to something that's really vibrato-y, just to hear. Yeah, there's a pretty radical tremolo, and we could now it's +8. Let's make this like. Okay, do you hear that? So that's 12 per second. And we can mess around with that as much as we want. So for example, we can make the frequency a function of time, and then it'll like speed up, and so you could have an LFO inside of an LFO. Essentially, nothing stops you kind of from stacking these functions together. In fact, let's because life is short. Let's do it. So another LFO. I'm gonna put sample time. And this time I'm going to do +6.0, and I'm going to say the amplitude is going to be 5.0, and the frequency is going to be really slow, so we can kind of hear, and 0.0 phase again.
Yeah.
So you hear that the rate itself is now LFO'd, so it creates this like interesting fluctuation in there. So kind of zooming out, for a second, like why a text-based DAW? Aside from the fact that it's massively collaborative, you could have like up to 100 people kind of working on different stuff. It allows you to approach stuff like LFOs and functions of time in a way that's like a bit more mathy, but might not be as easily achievable or as quickly achievable in a DAW. Of course, this is doable in Ableton. You could kind of stack LFOs as deep as you want, but the UI starts to get in the way at a certain point. Like in Ableton, if you have an LFO driving an LFO driving an LFO driving an LFO, it's really, really hard to kind of find your bearings. And here it's pretty I wouldn't say easy, but it's kind of the playground.
Just written out.
Yeah. Playground makes.
It's not a whole big picture of an LFO device. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
another one after that.
Exactly. So now let's get two sounds, and I'm going to put S1 for sound 1 and S2 for sound 2. So we're going to hear it twice, and I'm going to put on tag S1. And now I'm going to put on tag S2, and I'm going to put this up 1.7. So you'll hear two different pitches in there. And now we can, this is kind of when these functional settings get really interesting, because really quick you can go overboard in a, not at all in an unpleasant way, but it's, you can like really load this stuff up. So you'll hear So now we kind of have our chord building with that LFO driving.
Hmm.
So what that on tag is doing in there is it's kind of it zooms in after the semicolon and kind of picks the sound that you want. So here we're doing an on tag based on the rate, but we could have done an on tag based on volume or the buffer offset as well. The tags work sort of on any parameter. So I'll stop it for now. You can stop it on your end as well. But now that you've kind of seen the baptism by fire of what this thing is and what you can do with it. So it's a DAW. I mean, you sequence stuff, put stuff in order, it plays, you hear it, but it's just not it's not Ableton. That's
No.
for sure. But you can get up and going like kind of once you have your bearings in it. It goes pretty fast. Of course, Ableton does as well. But this kind of Ableton guides you to make certain choices based on how it's laid out, and this sort of guides you to make other choices based on how it's laid out. It's
Right.
maybe the best kind of way I could put it there. So now that you see kind of programmatically how this stuff is going, maybe one thing you could do is give a recommendation for like a different type of file. It could be something that we could extract a rhythmic element out of, or maybe it could be a drone, and sort of what stuff we could do with it that's fun. And I'll take care of the code part, but if you just want to talk out like expressively what that could be, then we could dive into it.
Okay, so out of the sounds I gave you to find like another
Yeah.
thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I've always liked to have some sort of like rhythm, most of the time, right?
Yeah.
Something to just kind of give me like a sense of where I am.
Yeah.
Even if I don't keep it in the end, it's just, I'm better than a metronome anyway
Yeah,
for me
yeah.
to have like some sort of beat or something.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do something with that. I think the cafe door one has a bunch of like clanking noises, and it's actually like to like a cafeteria, this big door with this handle you push in, and I think I made a number of sounds in there.
Yeah. Let me dig it up. Cafe door. I'll play it back. Oh yeah.
Sort of has like a big reverb from the environment too.
Yeah. There's a lot of
People noises.
Yeah. There's a lot of onsets in there. So what I'm gonna do is import it into. I mean, it could be like any old editor, but let's say Audacity, just to get the attacks right. Because if it's gonna be rhythm, then we want it to be like pretty crisp. So you people on my stream can see that. So this DAW, it's sorely lacking in visual elements, including there's not a waveform reader, so I kind of pick up Audacity for that. But it works just fine. So the first one is at 0.8 seconds. Okay. Which is like a cash register sounding type sound, sort of. So I'm going to put 0.8, I'll note that in here, 0.8 seconds cash register. It's probably not that, it's probably the door, but that's
But yeah, sometimes. Yeah.
and then 3.0, like kind of a more slammy sound. And what did I call this in here? C door, I think I called it. Okay. So now we're going to do the tags a little bit differently. So you can see on line 62, I'm going to put like C1 and C2. But the important bit here, and I'll why is this opening up some spam? Yeah, whatever. So we're going to need to deal with the gain sort of drastically different. So you said it should be beat wise, which means that we're going to want it to close off pretty fast afterwards. We don't want to wah-wah on it. It's not going to work. Sorry, I realized that I lost your image in there, but you're back. So let me put another map of the change volume in here. And then what we'll do is if the sample time is greater than, let's say, 0.5, then 0, else 1. So you see that this is like what this is going to do essentially. This line 63 is it's going to take. It's just going to make it way more percussive. Like 0.5 seconds is not a lot of time at all, and then it'll be like a drastic drop off essentially. It might not sound good, but like it's kind of a good first gambit into this. And then the thing that we'll really want to play on is these offsets. So I'm going to say on tag C1, and then I'll make the offset 0.8, and same thing on tag C2. Now I'm going to make the offset 3.0. And I'll just play it back to see, actually, no, else 1.0. So if you play it back, you'll hear too that you get those two sounds basically from the Cafe D'Or in this loop.
That does sound like cash register.
Yeah, it does. Like when it's.
I believe that's pushing the mechanism in on the door.
Ah, okay, yeah.
But it's kind of like similar to closing the drawer.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. And we could do it. I'm gonna pitch shift C2 down an octave because I think I don't know if this will actually work, but I think that could be sort of our bassy type sound. It might not have enough oomph to it, but like we'll find out. Yeah. What do you think of that? If you press play, the C2, this like.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more because there's nothing in the recording that kind of has that bassy type level to it. Okay, so going back into the sound, let me see if there's any other little bits in it. Yeah, there's. Let's say at 17.6 seconds, there's something sort of interesting. C-Dur, C3, C-Dur, C2 again. And what I'll do is I'll make C3 on tag C3, and I'll put this at 17.6 seconds. So if I play it again... So you hear, or you should hear it in 4/4 time now with those four samples in there. So now I'm wondering kind of like, what type of, so currently the loop is 3 seconds long. We could kind of make it, I mean, just kind of trivially. So I'll press play again and make it like twice as fast. And now back to where it was. And folks that are listening can hear that just speeds it up. And what I'm wondering is kind of what type of, now that you hear kind of what the proposition is, what type of rhythm texture do you want to build? Like kind of more of a traditional beat or something that's like a bit more out there?
Yeah, I think this is already starting to be a little bit out there, so we might as well go in that direction, right?
Yeah, sure. In for a penny, in for a pound. I'm just trying to think of like what. Yeah, maybe one way to do it, like, I'm gonna jostle it so that this low one is happening kind of earlier rather than later. Let me play it back and kind of hear it. So
that feels more like on a one.
Yeah, exactly. Let me kind of at a basic level just repeat this stuff. It'll sound really kind of 1980s glitchy with these repeats because it's so literal, but let me just play it back and kind of hear how it sounds with that. It kind of has this Pink Floyd money quality to it of just like these raw samples done in time. But I bet that I could I have an idea. So I'm gonna do C3. I'm gonna take C3 and just 4, 5, 6, 7. So C4, C5, C6, C7 are all gonna be that same sound. 4, 5, 6, 7. But now what I'm going to do is pitch shift it subtly every single time. So you can see on line 66 that I have 4, 5, 6, 7, those on tags. I'm going to do that again. Or actually, even better, because we already have a rate. So C4, and then I'm going to change the rate to, let's say, like 1.2. And then I'll go up C4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 1.2, 1.4, 1.8, and 2.5. Something pretty radical. And let's see what you hear the.
That's neat.
Yeah, and so it's something's emerging to me in there. I feel like really what we want is for the one to be like magnanimously large, because when you have this like that, then you want it to occupy
Kind of leads
space.
you up to it.
Yeah. I'm wondering what in there, if anything, it doesn't need to be in this file, it could be somewhere else, but is there something that you think could be finagled into magnanimous largitude?
Let's see. I'm listening to coffee noises. There's a lot of like percussive stuff in the coffee noises one. The long file.
Yeah, let me find it. Yeah, it's a long file. I'm wondering if it's not a bad thing, but I'm just.
It's hypnotic.
Yeah. It's really. Yeah. Around 1 minute and 50 seconds. I'm wondering like if that could be this interesting low gurgle. There's two, so that's coffee noises. Okay, I think I called it cafe with a K. Yeah, cafe. All right, so I'm gonna do wind s parse cafe, and what I'll do is another one of these on tags. I'll put like just KF. So we're gonna say that the offset will be like, how many seconds is that? In 1 minute and 50 seconds is 110. There you go. I did the math in my head. And then change volume. I'm gonna make it slope downwards. And actually, let's pitch shift this like a mofo already. So change rate. You'll see me on line 63. Change rate. Const 0.25, and let's. I haven't pressed play yet, but yeah, no, it's not going to work because we really need the volume to go down. Otherwise, it's going to be like really annoying to listen to. Let me press play and see what that does. Looks like my. Let me reload it really quickly. For some reason, sometimes it craps out. Because it's still sort of a product in beta. So let me try to play again and see if I hear it. I think maybe what it is it's taking a long time to download that file, because it's a pretty long file, which is fine. Yeah. So I press play. It's not really coming through. Let me Hmm. I'm wondering. One second. Change volume. Sample time is greater than
I
3.
think I hear something in the background, maybe.
Yeah, it's really subtle. Let me. The thing is, I don't want to like completely. Let me bring it back up to the original speed and see if it's really backgroundy. Let me. If I. Yeah, so I really increased the volume to something like obscenely loud, and now you can hear it. Yeah, it doesn't. It it's there, but it doesn't kind of create that effect. I'm not against the idea, though. If anything, I think that it's possible to. There's something about it to me that's kind of screams of wanting to be like flanged somehow, like this, because it's a really rich sound, but maybe not. Which we'll do. I'm an equal opportunity flanger, but it's not like the low note that we would have wanted there. But let's. You can't throw out the F word and not put it in. So let's say gig grip, high pass.
We've gone there.
Yeah. Let me find something. Yeah, there's a high pass. Yeah, there's like a few different. Yeah. What do I want? I'm sorry. I'm dipping into kind of my library of standard effects. There's like lots of stuff that we can take. Yeah, let me grab this. So
So you have like some of the code like kind of pre-written, almost like a preset
yeah,
that you can drag in.
exactly. So the kind of our community's culture is very copy and pasty, and you could see on line 62 that chunk of code is just it's a filter, but copied and pasted in from, like, we have this giant cookbook of stuff that people have done basically. And the nice thing about that sort of copy and paste culture, I mean, of course with Ableton you can copy and paste stuff too, but sometimes it gets hairy, especially if you don't have like the right plugins and things like that. So this speeds us up a little bit sometimes, if it works, which I'm about to find out. So let me just. Yeah, I'm not. I think that I'm gonna solo this out for a second, and just so. Yeah, let's just listen to this. One sec. I'm just gonna kind of rearrange stuff so that it's soloed. And then sounds. All right, let me press play. Yeah, it's not really working. You can. I think that it's too. Too soft.
Mm-hmm.
Let me know if you could hear something on your end.
I hear kind of like the remnants of it.
Yeah, it's the the filtering is just it's not its friend. Let me get rid of the filter. Yeah, now you really hear it. If you get rid of the filter, it's like very present. But I'm wondering why the flange is so. Let me just play around with values on the flange, maybe. Okay. I know why, because I copied and pasted a preset that's really soft. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So now...
It's kind of like circular feeling to it now.
Yeah. And let's see.
And I would guess the cafeteria door sounds that we're using for drums are very like clicky and cluttery.
Yeah.
And so is this sound, so it might be also a little bit of kind of competing at the same job.
Yeah, it could. Let me see if with some sort of EQ I can carve out. So now you can really hear the flange. I just changed it from a band pass to a high pass, and that definitely
sounds like the electric cord got in the coffee
yeah.
In a pot or something.
yeah, absolutely. Let me bring back the other stuff and just kind of hear how it is. So here on line 75, I've commented a bunch of stuff out, but we'll bring it back in. Yeah, it sort of works. I think the EQ could go up even more higher. Because you're right, it's like a lot of clicky stuff. I'm wondering what happens if you make a low pass filter. Yeah, as a low pass filter, it has. It's interesting. Let me pitch shift it and see if it what that does. Interesting. I'll kick it up a little like something about the low pass bit feels like almost David Lynch movie grungy-esque in there. It still doesn't have this kind of thudding that I'm looking for, but it doesn't necessarily need to. Like it's always possible. So for example, if I just go, if I pull in a sample from the standard library and listen to it now. I pulled in a bass drum for that's line 75.
Lambert's Future.
Yeah, exactly. These tracks are all named after like Earth, Wind, Fire, Lambert, Hendrix, Ross. So they're named after different musicians. But yeah, for me that fills the.
That is nice.
Void. Yeah. Let me. Not to beat a dead horse with it, but there is kind of one thing that I want to add in there just to see if it works. So one of the copy and paste things that we have is a delay line, and I think on that hit it might be really interesting to have a delay line in there. Let me see if it sounds good. A lot of times like I'll think this and then it actually sucks, and then we just don't do it. But
I know that feeling.
Yeah. It's common. So let me play it back. Not really. It's let me try slightly different pattern. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you hear that? That works. Just with that delay.
Yeah.
Of 0.2 seconds and then fading down every time 0.4. And just to be completely tasteless, we can. I'm curious like, if we put a gratuitous pan on it, how it will sound. Let me. I'm just gonna try to hard pan it. press stop now, just because that's. I realize that time is fun. We have like 5 minutes in the scheduled time, but of course, I'm only going a little over that. But yeah, I'll kind of maybe. Is there kind of one culminating finale-esque thing that you'd like to add to it before we wrap up?
Well, I've got this. The one Sam instrument might be fun. It's a tone. It's my nephew. He was probably much younger. He was probably like about like 9 or 10 years old at the time. And I've been sitting on the sample for a few years, not really, always kind of forgetting to use it.
Yeah.
But it's him. He's going. He had a karaoke machine or some like weird thing that I think somebody gave him for Christmas that they were sorry they gave to him after he really realized how much noise it made.
Yeah.
But it was like some sort of like karaoke singing machine that was having him like just go, "Doo," and it had like all this crazy delay and stuff. So maybe it can be just some kind of weird melodic thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I just took a listen at a basic level. We could definitely change volume. So I'm gonna do.
This one's probably louder.
It is sample time. So function of sample time. So we'll say calc slope. So we have this function here called calc slope. That's line. Sorry, let me pull your image back up. Line 53. I'm on. Yeah, exactly. So calc slope. We're gonna go from so you're right, it's louder. So 0.5 in the beginning to 0, 2 seconds in sample time, and then we're gonna say the maximum of 0.0, and so basically if it goes below 0, then we take the max, which is 0. Otherwise, a negative gain, it'll just wind up being positive. It'll go down to 0, then multiply it by something that's bigger again. So let me see. Actually, no, this is not going to be at all. 0, 0, 0.5, 0.5, or sorry, 2.0. Okay, let me press play and hear what this buys us. Yeah. Totally works. Do you hear the dude?
Mine's loading right now.
Okay. Yeah, you might need to do a
refresh.
Yeah, refresh. Yeah.
There we go.
It's exactly what you need. It just fits perfectly given the other delay stuff in it.
Like suddenly I feel like we're like at sea and that's like Morse code radar or something.
Yeah. It's really nice.
The swirling is nice to see, and
Yeah.
that helps feel like surrounded.
Yeah. I know. I mean, it's. I have a tendency to do these like awful things where something's perfect and then I change it becomes less perfect. But I just want to try one little thing on that voice, and then if it sucks, we'll change it back. So, just the absolute slightest dip. So like 0.97. So this is gonna be really subtle and maybe it won't even show up. But if it does, then 0.97. Okay, let's listen to that and hear if do you hear at the very end it's falling off a little bit pitch wise?
That's the pitch dropping a tiny bit.
If I exaggerate it a little bit, you'll hear it. Yeah, it's if I exaggerate it like a ton, it'll be like tasteless, but it'll totally now you hear it really, but something that maybe not that.
Yeah, that just a little bit was nice.
But I think if it's more subtle, like what I had before, something about these like really subtle pitches just feels like groovy a little bit in a way that you can't describe with words. But
I always set the delay inside of Live. It's got like an LFO for the delay time, and if you have it in the repitch mode, it will just ever so slightly. Oh, I often do it where you don't really notice it, but it's there.
Let me,
Just feels a little more alive.
as a tribute to your idea, if you go to line 84, right? So check out line 84, what I'm about to do. So the delay was 0.2, but now what I'm going to do is
Oh, this is on that kind of kick drum sound.
exactly zero. Or actually, let's do 0.20. And now, okay, let's. This needs to import the let's see what it does. Maybe. Yeah, that definitely does sound right. It's really nice.
Okay, so it's changing the timing.
Yeah, the delay. Yeah. But it's a little too extreme now. Yeah, now it's. Not a fan actually. It was better before. So I'll set it back. So now it's back to. Anyway, okay, so I'll press stop. And I think that we have a creation that's a great loop. I'll.
Yeah, like
I'm
I'm definitely somewhere in the middle of the sea.
Yeah.
And trying to use like my electronics to get back home or something.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I could easily drop this in a track that has exactly this kind of like worrisome, um, sort of dark, like confusing vibe to it. And your nephew's voice definitely. It's like with all the repeated and delayed stuff, it works perfectly in there. It's like the cherry on the sundae. Yeah.
It's funny how a voice sometimes, like if you just listen to it once, you hear it. It's just him going, doo, into
Yeah.
the microphone. But as it repeats, though, it starts to sound like more and more like electronic or something because
Yeah.
it's repeating the same way every time, and a voice would never do that.
Yeah. Exactly. It's and you can go like really. Uh, with this platform, you don't need to loop the same exact way every time. So you could kind of say like on the eighth loop, make it do this, or on the ninth loop, make it do that. And by tuning it in different ways on a different loop, it alienates it even more from the voice because no natural voice kind of has that level of like precision or
Right.
accuracy. So yeah, you can really go down the rabbit hole with that. But I'm curious now that we've done this exercise. If you have a little bit of time, we're over by 3 minutes. Already, but it's
Yeah.
very generous for you to join. But I'm just curious, kind of a gut impression now that you've like been in it and seen music made in it, and just the give and take and sort of what it can do, what it can't. Like, do you have kind of a gut response to the universe of the DAW and kind of what it's going for?
Yeah, and it's neat how you can type this stuff in and get like those technical values exactly where you want them. And so I have no coding experience, not even Max for Live really. I did like a couple like beginner exercises on Max for Live, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So I'm coming at this, no idea what a lot of this is
Yeah, of course.
that you're writing in. I would really have no idea how to make what you just made on my own. But I do like how this is just like a totally different way of doing it. It's almost like if I pick up a guitar compared to if I pick up a keyboard, or if I any other instrument really. Like you just approach music in a different way.
Yeah.
And we never would have made that in another format.
Yeah, and that's
It only happens here, and it would probably never happen this way again.
yeah,
either.
yeah, exactly. Just based on like the day we meet up and like personal,
Yeah.
wherever you want to
These
go.
random samples I grabbed, not really knowing what you were going to do and how it was going to work out. Um, it it's a cool way to like for me, if I was doing this, I'd be like, all right, that's cool. I'd probably sample what we did in here and bring it in somewhere where I'm more comfortable
Yeah, of
working.
course.
But as a sample, like I could see this being like a really fun way to generate like these like weird like interludes and sections of songs between songs even.
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely that's one usage that I've seen come out a fair bit, that people will like record it, bounce it down, essentially using something like Op Studio, which is what we're using now for streaming, or just kind of
Mm.
any exporter from Firefox or Chrome, and then we'll import it exactly like you're saying into Ableton. And then the nice thing is that as your Ableton document, like let's say that you need to scale the tempo up or down for whatever reason, you just re-record it with this. It's like, because as you said, there are like these fine-tuned parameter values. You're not like locked into a AIFF file. It's you can crack the thing open and sort
Yeah.
of do whatever you want. And I agree with you about the kind of, it takes you in a direction that you wouldn't go otherwise. I find that just for me personally, playing around in Ableton, like even though it's a vast world of what's possible to do, like I kind of I wanted something that would push me and challenge me just to make stuff in a way that I wouldn't in Ableton.
Mm.
And all this is definitely doable in Ableton. Like 100% of what we just did can be done. You could set, of course, as you know, you've done this in your videos. You could like slide the window where a sound starts. You could change its rate. You could change all the stuff you can do. But something about the way it's laid out here and kind of, I don't even know how to put it, but the the text based format like moves the brain to a different place, maybe.
And the way you're doing it in seconds, making loops in seconds rather than bars.
Yeah,
I imagine we're probably translating this all into like 120 or 60 or some multiple of that as we do this. But it's neat that you're kind of like saying like, all right, we're just going to stick three, like when you did the triplet thing, right? You just had three notes happening within a second and it made your triplet.
yeah,
I think could be kind of like a cool thing, especially for people that aren't so familiar with the beats and the measures and stuff, but they don't, 16th notes, what's that? But I get that I want to divide this loop into 16 pieces,
yeah,
or probably like 13, or, you could do whatever you want, I suppose.
yeah,
You could
yeah.
have it divided into like 37, some odd, weird number and get these crazy kind of rhythms that you could almost that would be much more difficult to do inside a live.
On that subject, I mean, I've just made a new document. If you look at Brian 2, if you click on that in the Discord, Brian 2, but I'll just kind of this idea that you're talking about. So, like, uh, 7, this is 5 on 7. This is perfectly fine. I mean, and it's exactly what you're saying. Like in live, doing 5 on 7 would be like pulling teeth, and here it's
You just typed it in.
you just type it in. It's trivial.
You
So
know, I feel like I saw a Max for Live device maybe that allowed you to do. I don't know if it's quite like this. I didn't. I saw it. It was, the results were cool, but it was kind of like I don't understand how this works either.
yeah,
I don't know if it was Max for Live or something, but what you just did kind of reminded me of that.
yeah.
Somehow typing in the numbers, and it was these strange polyrhythms and all kinds of stuff. It was pretty cool.
What do you think in terms of like, so because I'm just starting on this adventure, like I haven't put any time into pedagogy really. Like it's mostly been me having conversations like the one we're having right now, of like sticking on a very musical level, essentially. Like what do we want to accomplish? What sound do we want? And then kind of making that happen. And pedagogy, I feel like you approach it in a totally different, and you're really good at this in your videos, but you approach it in a really different way. You're like very much like first principles. Okay, we start with this and then we do that and we do that. One concern that I have is that a lot of musicians, so I'm a musician but I'm also a coder, and a lot of musicians they don't write code just because like life has never like led them in a direction where that skill has come up. But I'm wondering, like, is there a pedagogical angle to this, or alternatively, is it sort of should it lean all in on the geekitude or nerditude of it, and then at that point, like,
Mm.
pedagogy's sort of it's a much smaller set of people, but then like, that is what it is. I don't know. I mean, it's an open question for me.
well, it's like a way of thinking almost. You know, it's like another like another road you can think about music on. And I do think a lot of like the way you typed that in was like pretty cool, just the 5 and the 7. And I think for people coming from coding, they would be like, "This is great. This is a really fun way to do it." Coming from my world, it's like, wow, this is just another. It's a totally different language for making music, but at the same time as you're talking through it, I understand what you're getting at. Like we're saying, it's gonna have this many per second, which is really translated to, again, like beats per minute.
Yeah.
So if it's a second, it's going to be some multiple of 60. And so, yeah, it's I could see it as like an interesting way to kind of help solidify a person's understanding of really both music and code, because you're kind of like making these new connections with material you already know to something you might be learning still. Or if
Yeah.
you're a musician and a coder, then you're kind of probably just combining things you understand and, really strengthening both.
Yeah, definitely. And I find that like some people that I know that are learning coding in school right now, like I don't have kids that are old enough to be that, but like people I know whose kids are doing that. Like one of the persistent complaints is like, what will this get me essentially? Like they're learning a programming language, but like what it gets them is like printing out "Hello World" on a terminal, and they're like, ah,
Hmm.
that's not. So I mean, I think that music could be a really nice carrot at the end of the stick of coding, kind of when you're starting out at least. I mean, of course code can accomplish lots of things, like the Discord conversation we're having right now exists because of code and many other things
Yeah.
too. But systems like that are really big. Essentially, you need to be working for many years and with like a whole team to pull something like that off. And this, I mean, also the thing that we did was difficult. It's not like easy at all, but it's like at least it's self-contained, and doesn't require like as many collaborators and stuff like that. So it's definitely something that goes through my mind of like, is it? I mean, I like your idea of if you're already coming from the coding perspective, then kind of there's an in into this, and there are a lot of people taking classes in code, wondering like, why the hell am I here? And if they're musicians, like maybe that gives them the extra oomph to.
Yeah. In high school, we did some kind of like coding class. It was like maybe a semester. And a lot of it was I didn't understand. We were making a ball bounce on the
Yeah,
screen,
yeah, yeah,
little things like that, which like sometimes it was like, oh, that's cool because you're just plotting in an X value and a Y value, and now you got the grid, and some of it made sense, but it wasn't. It was like, okay, so now the ball's moving. It wasn't like I made this like really cool sound of like being lost on a ship at sea, and I'm trying to go through like it didn't have the same. I guess we were like kind of just like painting by numbers and following along.
yeah,
And that I'm sure that's, you sort of have to do that in the beginning. But it didn't inspire me to be like, let me learn more about this and try more.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wonder. It's I'm dating myself, but I've been out of high school far too long to know what the like what that curriculum looks like these days. It must have changed since I was when I
Oh
was a
yeah,
kid. There was
yeah.
like C plus plus and just like the super low level stuff. I mean, Python was like not in the curriculum at all, and now I think that's like a very popular option and just stuff like that. But I do think that yeah, like the poetic aspect of it. Like I like how you always come back to the poetry of the sound. Like where is it putting us and kind of how is it disorienting us? And like I think when people think about their high school coding class, they don't think about poetry. They think about a lot of things, but not that. And like I would love to, I don't know, find a vocabulary that keeps coding on the poetic. And then your fingers are just moving because they actualize this poetic idea or ideal that you have. But like keeping it there, for me personally, I didn't take a high school coding class just because it was even out of sight, out of mind for me that like that could be accomplishable, and I kind of learned that later in life.
Yeah.
But if somehow translating that to people at that point in time, I think could be like a really,
My class might have even just been like a computer class that had a coding like unit.
Yeah, yeah.
um, I don't remember high school too well anymore.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
happened?
it's the same here.
But
Those cells were fried long ago. But anyway, cool. So maybe if you want to end just by you said a little bit of your upcoming projects, but just so folks on the stream kind of know like what to look out for and kind of where to find your new samples when they're coming out.
yeah, I do everything through brianfunk.com.
Yeah.
And then socials is either Brian Funk or Brian Funk Music, and it'll get out through that. That's like the hub though, where I do stuff from is brianfunk.com, and yeah, I'm doing sound packs. Even just like going through some of these things I've recorded to share with you, I kind of was like, oh, I gotta finish making that pack with these weird sounds, and so that's something I'm probably gonna refocus on as a result of just this, which is cool.
Yeah.
But the podcast is through there too. Music production podcast. If you guys want to listen, it's always fun to talk to people and learn from them. Really.
Cool. I will definitely be dialing in on the next one. Is it diffused on Spotify or
It's everywhere.
everywhere?
Spotify, Apple. I put it on YouTube even for there's the video there.
Okay.
So any place you get podcasts, it'll show up.
So great. Cool. Well, cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on the stream and
Yeah.
kind of trying something new. It's a brand new project, like months old. So kind of every like if this is successful, 5 years down the line, every incremental conversation, like it'll be valuable. But when something's like just starting out, every incremental conversation is huge because like those are the first steps in the journey you're taking. So I really appreciate you having one of those conversations with me through your music and your ideas.
I'm happy you wanted to have one with me. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I will close down the stream and close down this Discord. But nice having you on, Brian, and I'll see you around.
All right, and best of luck to you. Might keep me posted on how it goes.
Thanks. You too.
All right,
Take care.
take care.
Bye.
Bye.